Section 7 is about controlling color and other aspects of the style of things in the display. Starting with color, many common colors can be referred to by their names. For example, the name red represents the color red. Here is a list of several named colors. The Wolfram language includes functions for common operations on colors. For example, this uses the color negate function to give a complementary color of yellow, which is blue. Another common operation is blending of colors. For example, this uses the blend function to blend yellow, pink, and green. Instead of giving the name of a color, another way to specify a color is by giving the amounts of red, green, and blue in the color, which can be done using the function RGB color. For example, this input gives red, this input gives green, and this input gives blue. The first argument in RGB color gives the amount of red on a scale from 0 to 1. The second argument gives the amount of green, and the third argument gives the amount of blue. This input uses RGB color to give a color that combines the maximum amount of red and the maximum amount of green, which turns out to be yellow. The amounts of each color don't have to be 0 or 1. For example, this gives a color with red set to 1, green set to 1/2, and blue set to 0, which gives an orange color. This gives a table of colors with maximum red and varying levels of green. Another way of specifying colors is with a function called hue. The argument in the hue function goes from 0 to 1. Hue of 0 is red, hue of 0.5 corresponds to a color called cyan, and hue of 1 cycles back to red. This gives a table of colors with hues from 0 to 1, showing colors from red to cyan and cycling back to red. Sometimes it is useful to just pick a random color, which can be done using the random color function. For example, this shows the random color function giving a random color. The random color function is used here without giving an explicit input to the function. For comparison, the input random integer of 10, with 10 as the argument of the function, gives a random integer between 0 and 10. For a random color, it is not necessary to specify a range, so random color can be used with no arguments. This makes a table of 30 random colors. This blends 20 random colors. Blending lots of colors usually gives a muddy gray or brown color. Probably the most common use of color is in specifying colors of things. For example, this uses color and the style function to show the number 1000 in the color red. Here are 30 random integers styled in random colors. In addition to color, another form of styling is size. For example, this uses the style function to show X in font size 100. This styles the number 100 in a sequence of different sizes. Color and size can also be combined. For example, this shows X in red at size 100. And this shows X styled in 25 random colors and sizes. That's the end of the examples for this section. To summarize, here is the programming vocabulary for this section. The examples showed specifying color using either the names of colors or using RGB color or hue, operations with colors, and some common uses of the style function. Colors and styles come up in many places in the Wolfram language, and so more information on colors and styles can be found in many places in the documentation. The guide page on colors, for example, includes links to information on RGB color and hue and operations like blend and color negate. Another useful reference is the documentation for the style function, which is a good place to start to find out about controlling color and size and many other aspects of style. Here are the exercises from the end of this section. As an example, consider exercise 7.8. Make a list of numbers from 0 to 1 and steps of 0.1, each with a hue equal to its value. This can be done by starting with a table of numbers from 0 to 1 and steps of 0.1, using n as the variable in table. Then use the style function to style each of those numbers with hue of n.